Since 1997, when Britain handed over sovereignty of Hong Kong to China, relations between the local residents, who had spent centuries under British rule, and mainlanders have been, well, somewhat less than harmonious. At first, travel to Hong Kong from the mainland was tightly controlled. But as restrictions were loosened, the numbers increased dramatically, and mainlanders now make up the vast majority of visitors to the city. Cultural clashes, however, started to spring up with claims about antisocial behaviour on both sides. Now, a recent incident involving a spat between a mainland tourist who allowed her child to eat on the subway, something banned on the Hong Kong subway system, and a group of locals who really attacked her quite vociferously, typifies the stereotypes perhaps each side has of the other. Now, Hong Kongers tend to see mainlanders as boorish, unsophisticated, and unwilling to observe civilized norms such as lining up, obeying rules, and even practicing basic hygiene. On the other hand, mainlanders often accuse Hong Kong residents of being untrustworthy in business, stuck up and arrogant and dismissive, especially when dealing with mainlanders, while at the same time tending to brown nose up to foreigners to seek their approval. Well, to make matters worse, Hong Kongers speak Cantonese. That's the dialect, many would say language, of the region. And they resent being lectured at and told they should speak Mandarin Chinese to visitors, which is the official language of the mainland. Now, this linguistic rivalry adds yet another element of difference to the distrust between the two sides, as this clip of a mainland professor speaking about Hong Kong shows.
是吧？当你遇到一个人，他所操的方言跟你不一样的时候，怎么办？双方都应该说普通话。 故意不说普通话是什么人？王八蛋，一定是心理阴暗，有别的目的。
Well, Professor Kong of Peking University there, demonstrating how to win friends and influence people. So despite the best efforts of both Hong Kong and mainland leaders to smooth over these frictions, it seems that animosity between many ordinary citizens on both sides is a fact. So how is this being viewed online, both in Hong Kong and in the mainland? Well, to find out, let's cross over to our researcher, Esther Dung, who's standing by in the newsroom. Now, Esther, it certainly seems there's no love lost between at least some Hong Kongers and some of their cousins on the mainland. And I believe the stakes have been raised recently with a pretty ferocious anti-mainland advertisement appearing in one of Hong Kong's main newspapers. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, well, sure. The ad was published in the high-circulation Hong Kong-based Apple Daily and calls mainland Chinese visitors locusts and asks, are you willing to spend 1 million Hong Kong dollars every 18 minutes to raise the children born to mainland parents? As you can see, it has an image of a locust gazing over the city, representing mainlanders. Then underneath, it gets even worse, suggesting that mainlanders are invading Hong Kong out of envy for its freedom, social welfare, and other resources. Now, obviously, plenty of posters on the mainland feel this is really going too far. And before we go to posters' comments, I'd like first to explain one big bone of contention in recent years. Large numbers of mainland mothers have been going to Hong Kong to give birth simply because they want their kids to have Hong Kong citizenship and the advantages that brings. But the result is that the whole maternity system in Hong Kong is being swamped. This quote is from the United Morning Post. Plenty of Hong Kong net users support this anti-locust appeal. And some of them make it clear that stopping mainland mothers giving birth in Hong Kong is aimed to protect Hong Kong, not to boycott non-locals. But lots of posters in the mainland argue that the word locust is totally humiliating and discrimination against the mainland. However, many mainland posters feel Hong Kongers exaggerate the negative effects mainlanders have on Hong Kong and ignore the benefits. For example, Pao Pao Babi asks on Weibo.com, did these Hong Kongers ever think about where they get their electricity, water, and other stuff from before publishing this ad? Does it mean that we mainlanders should answer back with an ad saying, are you happy for the mainland to provide Hong Kong with 80% of its eggs, meat, and other food? We mainlanders can't bear any more of this? And 平凡生活免提爱 shares this thought. I have to say, I don't like the behavior of some mainland tourists in Hong Kong either. But I think Hong Kong people should first learn to respect others before they ask for others' respect. After all, without our central government's preferential policies, without the water and electricity resources the mainland offers, what would Hong Kong be like? Hong Kong people should learn to be grateful. And interestingly, I've also found some comments from Hong Kong people. Zhang Jianting is a Hong Kong film director and actor. And he's written an article entitled "Who Are the Locusts?" in the Ningpo newspaper. In this, he says, Hong Kong people shouldn't transform regional cultural difference into hatred between Hong Kongers and the mainlanders. To be honest, Hong Kong people can find jobs on the mainland almost whenever and wherever they go. But it's far less easy for mainlanders to find jobs in Hong Kong. And the children born to mainland parents actually result from loopholes in Hong Kong's own policies. And why don't these Hong Kong people think about it from another angle? These babies will be helpful in terms of easing the aging problem in Hong Kong society, right?
Okay, Esther, so why do net users, or what do net users feel is behind this unhappiness that Hong Kong residents have with mainlanders? I mean, Chinese mainland tourists probably behave exactly the same way in other destinations, but the strongest criticism always seems to be from Hong Kong. Why is that?
Well, on this question, the majority of posters here think that it's mainly because Hong Kong people feel mainlanders are availing of all the resources and services which they use to have themselves. For example, this poster says on Baidu.com, Hong Kong people have long been unhappy with mainland tourists, but their criticism of lack of morality is just an excuse. What they really resent is that the privileges they used to enjoy have now been eroded and are open to these mainlanders. And this poster named Shanxi agrees, commenting on bbs.9179.com. Since we have so many food scandals and education problems in the mainland, people began to turn to Hong Kong for help. But the resources in Hong Kong are limited, and these mainlanders suddenly become a big burden on Hong Kong society. Well, I also come up with another interesting take shared by a certain number of posters that it's actually Hong Kong people's sense of superiority against the mainlanders that makes them unable to accept the fact that more and more mainlanders have become rich. One typical example is this poster, Richard CKY on Sina.com. I think Hong Kong people haven't realized the fact that no matter how special and different Hong Kong is from other cities in China, it is still just a part of the China, and Hong Kong people shouldn't regard themselves as superior to mainlanders. Now, since the current economic situation in Hong Kong isn't that good, Hong Kong residents will no doubt become more impatient and less tolerant. But at least some posters on Hong Kong forums take a different view. Li says on LIHLIposteros.com, I think these mainlanders deserve to be called locusts. We Hong Kong people know how to struggle for our own freedom and rights. But on what grounds do these mainlanders sit idle and enjoy the fruits of our work? By simply changing the citizenship of their kids?
Okay, finally, Esther, whether people like it or not, the fact is that more and more mainlanders will be travelling to Hong Kong. So are there any suggestions as to how this mutual dislike between some of them might be overcome?
Oh, yeah, sure. Basically, the majority of posters here, at least the ones not insulting the other side, think both sides should be tolerant and place themselves in the other's shoes. For example, Dan Yue Qimei says, not all the Hong Kong people dislike mainlanders, and not all the mainlanders behave badly in Hong Kong. Respect is a reciprocal thing, and this kind of spats will do no good. Well, finally, Sha Lo has this suggestion. It's inevitable for people to have frictions in their daily lives, but nobody will be happy after quarrels. Both mainlanders and Hong Kong people are Chinese. We shouldn't treat each other as enemies. Try to think from the other stance and things will become easier.